Okay, guys, welcome back to the channel. And we've got a familiar face from previously. We've got Rishu Saxena here, who's been on the channel before, but wearing a different hat, wearing the Snowflake hat. Quite recently, though, Rishu is now I think, the principal solutions architect, Rishu, at Coalesce. And
Yep.
And we've been, once again, Rishu's calendar is jam-packed. So to try to get even 30 minutes of time from Rishu at the moment is really high value, because everybody wants to hear about Coalesce in the market, and not least of all myself. And myself and Rishu talked about this previously. And, I've got an awareness of Coalesce at a high level. I've seen the name banded around quite a lot. And purposely, ahead of this call, I haven't delved into any of the details at all, because we decided, let's just have a high-level session where, especially if you guys are watching this and you've heard of Coalesce and you're not sure where it fits in the market, like I do, we're going to be going through this real time. Rishu might give us a short, 5-10 minute demo just to give us a little taster of what the tool's all about. But I guess, Rishu, first of all, welcome back to the channel and thanks for doing this again.
Right. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here again.
It's a pleasure. Seriously, it's a pleasure, because I know how busy you are. And my first question, and I might be confused about this, Coalesce and DBT, right? Why do I think they're closely aligned? And isn't DBT's annual conference called Coalesce? So is that, do you know what I mean? So I've had this conversation with some other people, and they've had that same kind of thing and nagging feeling in the back of their head. So my number one question is for you to clear this up once and for all. Is there any overlap between the two? And if there is, where did it come from? Where did it originate from?
That is a great question. I need to be very careful answering this question because there are legals involved.
Okay.
For the same very reason, but I can tell you that there was something in the US which eventually Coalesce.io, which is the organization I work for, won because we had the name first.
Okay.
So, but there are things that are happening. I would refrain myself from commenting on this because this is going to go into public channels. But whenever we catch up together on a beer or something, I'll give you the whole story.
So Coalesce, then, what is the tool and the product all about? What business problem is it designed to solve?
That is also a great question. What is the problem that Coalesce is there to solve, right? First of all, the most important thing here is that Coalesce itself is, first of all, what is Coalesce? Coalesce is a transformation tool, right? But it's a lot more than transformation tool. It's a transformation tool, it's a code automation tool, and it's an ops platform for data engineering and machine learning. But it only works on Snowflake.
Only Snowflake, then?
Only Snowflake.
None of the other modern cloud platforms like Redshift or BigQuery?
None of the other platforms. And there are multiple reasons for that. One of the main reason is focus, because Snowflake is innovating so quickly. We want our product and our customers using our product to use the functionalities that Snowflake comes out as quickly as possible. So one of the example is dynamic tables. They were launched in November last year. We actually co-launched. They were launched in private preview in November last year. We co-launched dynamic tables with Snowflake in December. Snowflake launched ML-powered functions this year. We co-launched support for ML-powered functions in June Summit this year. So the intent is, like, customers don't have to wait for 6 to 8 months even before they can get hands on the functionalities, right? It's a long time in data space, and focus on a platform helps us to do that, because once we start kind of supporting, or even if we think about supporting, and not just us, like, think about any product like this that supports multiple platforms, they have to build on a lowest common denominator, right? And that's what is the problem across most of these technologies out there. So that's the reason.
Love it. Well, that's great in my book then. So focuses on snowflakes. That's a big tick from my perspective. And
the other reason I want to quickly also point out is that if you look at Snowflake, and as good as a platform it is, and I for those who don't know, I come from Snowflake, spent around 4 years there. The thing with Snowflake is that it's a very powerful platform. With Snowpark now in place, Snowflake supports SQLs and Pythons and Java, Scala. very powerful platform to store your data, process your data. But Snowflake practically has nothing when it comes for developer experience in terms of CI/CD, in terms of the whole standards and best practices and patterns that are utmost important. Once you land the data, how do you eventually make the data available for consumption purposes and everything in the middle? Snowflake as a platform actually lacks a lot of those functionalities, and that is what Coalesce is out there for.
Love it. Well, that's exciting to me because a lot of my customers who are new to Snowflake, invariably one of the questions they ask is, right, now we want to move to a CI/CD style methodology.
Yep.
We want to adopt those principles, but where do we start? And you're absolutely right. The developer experience then is that final kind of hurdle, which at the moment is really lacking from a Snowflake perspective. Recently at Summit, they obviously announced some native integration with Git, and that's probably still a few months away. And that's only going to be, one of several areas that need to be addressed. So this is a real problem in the market, I guess, Rishu, that I see that my customers are asking for. And when we have to provide a solution at the moment, without something like Coalesce, we're having to stitch together different tools and technologies, Terraform and the likes of that kind of thing, Flyway, that kind of stuff to try to make it work, right?
Absolutely, man. And it's a big problem. Like more often than not, in my previous role, I went and met customers. They had only two complaints. One, data engineering is so expensive on Snowflake. And it's a perception, but also it's because of some of the tools that customers are using and some of the things that are forced upon the platform. And the second one was how, like, even if I want to go and talk about data science, they would eventually come bring back the conversations around how do I process this data? How do I run this on a daily basis? I'm like, that's a massive gap in the market. So that's what actually Coalesce is out there to solve. And to answer your second question around where does Coalesce lie, and it's kind of like taking our conversation further. If you think about it, there are primarily two types of product in the market. There's like one side one extreme where there's code heavy products available where everybody can kind of use a bit of a template, but then you can start writing your own code and write in your own style. It kind of brings in that flexibility, but also it adds a lot of technical debt where you're now dependent on every user's skill level. It becomes very, very hard to manage and maintain over a period of time. But also when it comes to scalability, a lot of organizations are struggling, especially the large ones, on keeping the lights on and making the changes. It just gets very, very expensive when it goes beyond a particular scale. And then some of the other tools that are more GUI driven, which is trying to solve the first problem, they actually they lack a lot of flexibility because they're very rigid. They moved it all over the place, and it just becomes a mess when it comes to, again, working on data at scale and with all the security governance around data. Like it's in this age, nobody should be pulling data out. and actually both the ends are guilty of doing that. And this is where kind of Coalesce comes in. And then it's right in the middle. And I'll show you how Coalesce works, but it's right in the middle of these two products. It provides those standards and best practices, but it doesn't pull and stores any data at rest. So it's 100% pushed down on Snowflake. And that's how you scale your pipelines. There's no other way of doing it.
Got it. And so this, just before we go into looking at the product itself, then what I've got in my mind at this stage is almost some kind of drag and drop in configurable environment that's creating code behind the scenes and pushing it down to Snowflake. Now, I may or may not be right, but I'm trying to read between the lines of what you've said and kind of what that might look like practically, right?
You're correct. So code automation, which is where we are not really writing code. So we want to bring standardizations across the whole platform. It doesn't matter who's driving the keyboard. But also at the other end, we are not doing drag and drop of transformations. And this is where patterns come in. And I'll show you some of those patterns and how they look like in the product.
Sounds good. Let's have a look.
SaaS service only, nothing to deploy management in. Like everything, it's literally like Snowflake built from scratch, SaaS only, sits on public cloud, integrate with Snowflake, push down. Like I don't have to give the whole spiel again, but that's what it is. Like literally built on the same footsteps of Snowflake, but for the whole data engineering and ML engineering pipelines.
And I'm assuming, Rishi, we can run on all of the main free cloud providers as well.
So we would be. Today we are available on one of the three cloud providers, but so this is SOC 2 Type 2 compliant product.
Okay.
As I said, The developer experience is what you would use for building, but the CD experience is literally in customers VPC. You have obviously Git integrated. So Git is in your VPC, the command line is in your VPC. You're making connection to Snowflake using your private link. Like this, just you would make connection to Coalesce so that you can get all the metadata information. But after that, like everything is actually happening between customer VPC and Snowflake. So the way this product is designed, it's built to make sure that we are not, and we don't bring any data back, we don't pull any data out, so there's no data that is moving between the products.
Awesome. Well, that makes that security conversation a lot simpler, doesn't it?
Very easy, man. Like I love this product from that side.
Yeah.
We don't keep any data, so there's no problem. It doesn't matter what kind of data you bring in. Let's look at the product. In fact, here I'll take a step back. What you see here is when you log into Coalesce, this is how it looks like. On the top, you have like two experiences. There's a developer experience and there is a CD experience. I'll come to CD experience. And we have something called projects. The projects are basically a Git repository, right? So you would have this product, as I said, built for CI/CD. Every project can have its own Git repository. And eventually from that point onwards, you're creating your workspaces. And workspaces are where you would create an integration branch. From integration branch, you will start creating feature branches, build on your own branch, collaborate on the same branch if you really want to, eventually go check in your code. And then that's how the CD is going to trigger as well. So I'll launch one of the workspaces. And when you log in, it's literally blank. On the left-hand side, we have objects. We'll come to that. On the right-hand side is a graph view. So we're building a graph, a DAG from the graphs. And we would actually go and add sources. At this point in time, it's going into Snowflake and it's creating a connection. And it's using either your OAuth to integrate with Snowflake, or just just connect and get these metadata and bring the metadata out. So these are TPCH sample data in Snowflake. If I just quickly add these sources, you would see that my sources come here. These sources are not, they're obviously, you cannot update them. They're all read-only. And these sources, and we get all the metadata information about these sources from Snowflake. From this point onwards, we talk about standards, best practices, and patterns. And they are all around naming conventions. When you create objects, storage best practices, you don't want all your stages and dimensions and facts all in the same schema. Eventually, you want them to be available across different schemas so that you can work better with them. When you're doing deployments, and that's one of the problems with, especially with code-heavy tools, where you can't stop people from not using fully qualified names. But then as soon as you do that, as soon as you deploy, things start breaking because those objects don't exist, those databases, those schemas don't exist. Especially with Snowflake, every developer can have their own database. So they are creating objects in their own databases and schema. This product works very cleverly. You're never, ever referencing an object with its fully qualified name. Again, one of those benefits of working on this product. And very easily, speed is one of the biggest things, right? You can start building your pipelines. What you see here is, I was talking about patterns. And we're building patterns here. And to build the patterns, anything that can be that is repeatable is a pattern in data engineering world. And data engineering pretty much is set of patterns. There are like 20, 30, 50, 100 patterns, but that's about it. You can pretty much build the whole pipelines using those patterns. These are some of the out-of-the-box, we call them as nodes, graph terminology. And these are some of out-of-the-box nodes. You would see there are data vault nodes. They are actually built by Scale3, so one of the data vault leading organizations. We have dimensional modeling nodes. We have nodes for dynamic table. We have nodes for streams and tasks, CDC, ML-powered functions. And guess what? You can create your own nodes. Everything you see here is 100% customizable, like code-heavy tools. So I built my own node called Rishu stage, and you can build whatever you want. And you can define what that particular node can do. So in the interest of time, let's say if I want to create a stage node, I'll quickly go and create a stage node. And I've now created stage nodes for every single object here, right? And one of the standards that we are talking about were naming standards. Every stage node is STG underscore. And let's look at customer, because customer is interesting. And what you see here is that node definition and what you can do with that node. On the left-hand side is all the columns. Again, we have the mappings of those columns and some more information about it. On the right-hand side, you have options. And these options change with every pattern or every node type. So you can create this view as a table. I mean, this stage as a table or a view, again, modifiable, add transient table next to it. You can absolutely do that. It comes with default patterns saying you should always truncate a stage table. That makes sense. You can write pre or post SQL. What you can also do is build testing framework. And testing framework in this product is actually built in for every single node. So you can start with doing data testing, column level testing, and some of the common column level testing are available just by a click of a button. So you can say, I want to test cust key for nullability and uniqueness because this is my join key. It has to be not null and unique. Or go ahead and write as complex test case as you want this to be. And you're writing a negative test case scenario. You can run this before or after loading data into this object, and you can continue or fail your test case, right? For failure pipeline. And we'll get to pipelines as well. I would not do that. And then what you do is you can actually create these objects. And this is one of the major differences. Because you're only working with metadata, you actually never ever invoke Snowflake compute resources when you're building these objects. You also have ability to actually go and test your SQL or your code, even if it's Snowpark code, without actually invoking compute on Snowflake. So if you know what you're doing, pretty much your work on Snowflake is just your, your Snowflake services credit that you end up using in this. Again, to talk about speed, very quickly, you can say, you know what, I want to actually go and bulk edit these nodes and apply a transform, and I want to do an upper on these nodes. It has, we can preview our changes. You can see that it's just an uppercase on all these nodes. You're happy with this work, all this is done, recreate this node. And if you run without actually running, and you can absolutely run this, it's going to run and load the data and bring in only 100 rows, which are only for the session. So never storing data at rest. But while you're validating the run, it's actually only doing the test on the code that you have written, right? Again, things that you can do very, very quickly. But let's take it a notch further and build a dimension. And again, we go back to standards and best practices. It has added now system columns because it could be a SCD2 type of a node. It has added a surrogate key because that's the best practice that you should be doing. And the options have changed. There is no option for truncating a table. You can create a cust key because business key is required. We're going to do merge. But let's make it a little bit more complicated, right? Let's do SCD2 on name, address, and phone number change. So anytime these 3 columns change, I want to actually track these changes. We create the object, metadata only, and we test the run. I'm deliberately not running this because this is all free while you're working on this. And what it has done is it has generated this merge statement that's going to run on Snowflake. And these are the scenarios that it's testing. So it's testing for new rows. New rows would be inserted with, end date set in future. For existing rows, it's going to go and end date those existing rows. And it's going to test on these 3 columns. Then it's going to union, and it's going to set the start date as current date. And just like that, we have actually produced 200 lines of code. And it is very powerful. That's all you need to do when you're working with this code. And now we have an SCD2 type dimension table there. And you can actually do this for other columns as well. Again, I can do a lot larger demo, but you can actually see that it would not take too much time for me to go and build this stuff. And I can also, while you're building this, you're also building this column level lineage across this whole platform. And it's available for every single developer that is using this product. You are also having Git integration. As you would see that I had a lot of stuff here. I've deleted some of these stuff, and any change that I'm making, you would see those changes appearing before you actually go and commit your work. So you can very quickly start building these pipelines, look at the changes you're doing. And again, you're working on your different branches and you're committing your work back. You can create jobs, and jobs, let me show you another little bit more complex one. Eventually you would end up building something like this, right? You have stages and joins and fact tables, and very quickly you'll build all this stuff. And then you can create these jobs. And if you want to, let's say, refresh a fact table, You can have a job there, and I would just call it as fact. Refresh. And with this job, let's say you want to refresh this fact table. And this fact table means almost nothing because you want to refresh all the dependencies that are coming with the fact table. So you can quickly add a plus sign on the back, and it's going to bring all the dependencies that are coming through to refresh this fact table. Also, you see that it has also left out all the stuff that was not contributing to the refresh of the fact job. Other thing here is that the levels that you see is also the levels of the dependencies and the parallelism it can bring in. So let's say all the stage tables would be automatically created and refreshed in parallel when the job is executed. So it's taking care of all those things as part of metadata. Let's look at a little bit more complex one. And this is actually a data vault implementation. And the more complex it gets, you will see the value of lineage, because you can see the lineage that you're building across this whole pipeline and where the data is actually moving to, right? And from the lineage, if you're adding any column, you can actually also go and propagate changes. We can see that this column exists only in this view. I want to add this in the current view, also in this fact, and this fact, and this view. And you can preview your changes, and you can see that this is actually added, and you can just quickly apply. And as soon as you apply, this metadata change would automatically flow throughout the pipeline. Again, very, very easy for managing and maintaining these kind of changes. That was basically your CI, basically your developer experience, and while you're building your work and checking in your work. When you merge your work through the Git repository, that's where you would want to actually go and deploy the jobs. And this is the deployment dashboard. The whole CI is, again, developer experience is the UI. The CD experience is either through GitHub Actions. So as soon as you merge your work into branches, it can automatically trigger a refresh and a deploy job. So deploy is going to be DDL changes, and a refresh is going to be DML changes. It could do that. There are APIs that are available. So if someone has, and mostly organizations have their own orchestration tools, they have other products like Airflow. This can be used for that. And again, we provide API interface. So if you go to our documentation, there are APIs for triggering a job. There's an API for rerunning a job. It reruns a job from the point of failure, which happens a lot. Also, I would say that we encourage customers to modularize their jobs, because then there are less chances of failure. And even if the failure happens, then other jobs don't have to wait for these jobs to finish. So modularize the jobs, and again, a best practice to go and run it as it's a better way of running those jobs. All these code that is available, again, I have just written it into Python notebook because I kind of like doing that. And you would see that it's very, very easy. Like, we have jobs, every job has an ID, and every environment has an ID. All you have to do is, like, let me just quickly get the credentials. And when I run this, it's actually going to go and give me a run counter on the job. And if I go back to the dashboard, which should be here, you would see that it has actually triggered a job. And the other good thing about this part is that it gives you a visual way of looking at how your jobs are running. So it gives you last 20 runs. You can quickly eyeball your deployments. Anything fails, it returns the error. But it also shows you all the run for every single job that you have done. There's API. You don't have to actually come here and see. But while it's running, you can visually see for every object what kind of statement or SQL query that ran under the hood, start time, end time, number of seconds, records inserted, updated, deleted. If there's an error, it'll give you Snowflake error, which compute resource, down to the query ID in Snowflake. So if something fails, always go back to Snowflake and figure out what's happening. So it has that end-to-end capability of giving you this ECF framework out of the box. And again, there are documentation that is available at the environment level. So this is most likely your main branch that is getting deployed. There could be business users that would not want to log into the product and go through the lineage and everything there. So you can actually show them the documentation, and documentation would, of course, have capabilities of then at the column level, look at the lineage, at the object level, look at the lineage. And then, customers would be able to also go and figure out the kind of run script and the create script that are going to run, when this object is executed. So this documentation is always live. We are not storing this documentation anywhere. Every time you're asking for this documentation, we are actually creating this documentation. And the best part about this whole experience that you saw here is that it's all metadata driven. And this metadata is stored in customers' Git repository in their own managed Git environment. So whether it's Azure, DevOps, or it's GitHub, or Bitbucket, any version or any flavor of Git, it actually integrates with that. So it's a very, very powerful tool. It's end-to-end, as I said, ops platform, and through nodes, which are the patterns, and through the whole CI/CD pipeline, the way it runs, it actually goes and solves this problem of running pipelines on top of Snowflake.
That's awesome, and that was a really clear run through as well, Rishu. And I just want to just clarify a couple of points. It still covers just the T in the ETL, does it? So you still need a way of onboarding data onto Snowflake before Coalesce can kind of pick it up and work with it. Is that right?
That is a very good question. Remember one of the philosophies where Coalesce does not brings or deals with data. So we actually would create, we can read the data into Snowflake as long as it's one of the Snowflake native methods. So we can always create a node for Snowpipe streaming or Snowpipe just in general, or copy commands if the data is available on S3 bucket or any cloud storage native buckets. But we can't connect to any source systems. We are not the E or extract. We cannot, because we don't store or deal with data from that perspective.
And I guess in that case, then, just to underline that point, probably most of your customers are using something like Airflow in terms of an end-to-end orchestration wrapper to help kind of onboard data onto Snowflake and trigger downstream processes once Coalesce has kind of done its part. Is that a fairly common kind of pattern that you see with the customers who are using this at the moment?
Yes. So a lot of our customers, so look, if you think about it, like the philosophies of our product, and a lot of our customers use Fivetran. And if you look at Snowflake, like all the three products have almost common philosophy where the focus is more on business value and less on, doing and making things run on a daily basis. So a lot of our customers have Fivetran for integration, ingestion, Coalesce for transformation, and then Snowflake as a platform. And then, yes, to bring all these three together, some kind of an orchestration tool that can automatically trigger the whole pipeline. And that is another one of the reasons why, we do have CLI, but end of the day, majority of our customers already have an orchestration tool. And that's the reason we provide that rich APIs. So it doesn't matter like what kind of, what kind of tool you use. Sometimes it could be as simple as a shell script, but there are these APIs and all these support for different languages that can integrate with existing orchestration tools.
Got it. Okay, makes a lot of sense. Listen, that's been a great overview. And I guess if people want to find out more, there's a couple of things that they can do. Obviously, they can look you up on LinkedIn and connect with you and look out for all of the different kind of webinars and things that you've been running as well to kind of help get the message out about Coalesce. And this is part of that campaign, I guess, in some shape or form. Also, I guess if people want to see more detailed stuff or have any questions, you can comment on the video below as well. If they want to know more, Rishu, if they want to kind of download a trial, I guess there's a Snowflake quick start, no doubt, that people can get involved with and kind of download their own. Is there a trial version? What would you recommend if people wanted to go to the next level?
Oh, mate, that's such a good question as well. I would recommend to have a Snowflake trial because you want Snowflake accounts, credits, and also want Coalesce on top of it. Just go to trial.snowflake.com, set up a Snowflake trial. Within Snowflake, go to Partner Connect, search for Coalesce, and just, you will get a trial account from Coalesce that would be automatically linked to your Snowflake account. And that's the easiest way of doing it. We do have a small guide in Snowflake, but also Coalesce has guides.coalesce.com. As I said, like we are kind of shamelessly copying everything that Snowflake has as best practices. So we have guides.coalesce.io, and /foundations. And that is where you would find a very detailed hands-on lab that you could run. I'm also going to be running a lot of these hands-on labs, as webinars. And again, we'll find a name, Zero to Coalesce or whatever that is. But we're going to be running those webinars. And as you said, like bringing the name out.
Awesome. So make sure you follow Rishu on LinkedIn to get the first to know about that. I'll include some of the links that you just mentioned in the video description as well, so people can do that. In the meantime, thanks so much, Rishu, for making the time to go through that and give us a really good, albeit short demo. I'm sure we didn't cover all the bells and whistles, but it gave me a really good overview of what that tool does and where it's positioned in the market. And it makes a huge amount of sense. Certainly for a lot of customers I work with, that would be a very compelling kind of choice to consider your product. So thanks very much for your time on the channel again.
Right. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
I also wanted to let you know about our Master in Snowflake program with myself that we run, and it's an exclusive signature program to help you master Snowflake and learn how to design, implement, and scale solutions in the cloud. And I've designed this program specifically for those people who have either scratched the surface using Snowflake or who are stuck working with legacy on-premise technologies and haven't been invested in by their companies and have fallen behind in their career. And what I've done is packaged up my knowledge and experience of working with Snowflake since 2017 and learning how to package up Snowflake's out-of-the-box capabilities in a way where you can apply them in the real world to address common challenges. So this program isn't about theory. Of course, I need to introduce you to the concepts if you're new to Snowflake, and many of my members are, but it's really about introducing the theory and then in practice how you apply those in the real world. I've been through the pain of understanding what works and what doesn't. Now I've got a formula or a set of recipes, if you like, that show you how to do that. So the Master in Snowflake program includes in-depth, on-demand video course content that I've created that all include practical hands-on demos. I provide access to all the code, templates, and files that I use as part of those demos, so you can download them and use them freely. You may want to use them in your day-to-day work. You may want to take them and customize them and use them as a starting point. All members on the program get exclusive access to a members-only group where everybody can help each other out and share their knowledge and best practice and get expert advice. Finally, I also carry out a group 60-minute coaching call with all the members, totally optional, where you can ask me anything about Snowflake, data analytics, data strategy, data architecture, you name it, interview advice, and I can help you and give my input and help and support and guidance around that. Finally, you'll get lifetime access to all feature updates. Snowflake's changing and evolving. There's new features and releases every week, and you'll continue to benefit from those updates as well. At a high level, there's 10 modules. This is what we cover, everything ranging from the Snowflake architecture to getting data into Snowflake. And then once you've got data, how do you effectively use it, secure it, share it, and work with it to ensure that you get the maximum value from your Snowflake implementation. If you're interested, I've included the application link in the video description below. If this sounds like the thing that you're looking for and you want to supercharge your career, and if you're ready to take the ultimate step, I'd really encourage you to fill out the application form below.